What happened with this?
This meeting is being recorded.
First and foremost, I'm going to read the script. As a preliminary matter of this CRC, I, Chair, permit me to confirm that all members as anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bert Johnson,
Here,
say your name.
Bert Johnson.
Joanna Roach.
Joanna Roach here.
Veronica, am I going to go with Bollock?
Bolchik, B-O-L-C-I-K, Bolchik. Veronica Bolchik here.
Great. And is John on there?
John Balash is here.
Hi, John. I didn't see you. How are you? Okay, thank you, guys. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jericho Mealy,
In attendance?
Ann Median.
And Medina here.
Medina, I do it all the
I know you
time.
do.
Anticipated speakers. We do have somebody from the public here. And since Tara, I think we'll be speaking with Veronica, Tara, Restieri?
Restieri.
Restieri
here.
I'll get it right at some point.
No worries.
Good morning or good afternoon. This is an open meeting of the Contract Review Committee. It is being conducted remotely consistently with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. That has been updated as of, I don't know the date of the updating of this.
July 22, I think.
July of 22, we'll say. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. Yeah, it's too much. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in the publicly accessible physical location. We are now able to do hybrid. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allow public bodies to meet either entirely remotely or hybrid, as long as responsible public access is afforded to the public and can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment today because we will let Tara speak. For the meeting of the Contract Review Committee is conveyed by video conference via Zoom and is posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating. No, not all, but some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using any posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to, we're going to now turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude the remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold on to your name until further called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly. In this way helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in the conversation with other members, please do so through the chair and take care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public who have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted on a roll call. If I could please get I'm actually going onto my phone for 1 second. If I could please get an approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Bert Johnson,
Bert Johnson, aye.
John Balash,
John Balash, aye.
Joanna Roach,
Joanna Roach, aye.
Veronica.
Veronica Bolchik, aye.
Awesome. I don't think there's anybody else for me to do. So we're gonna go to the first item on the agenda. Packet discussions and questions. I would actually like to go, I'm gonna do that, if everybody doesn't mind, I'm gonna do that fifth and go fourth to the contracts that we had left the meeting to discuss. Is everybody okay with that? Swapping out to go over the contracts that we had talked about last week for approval? Okay.
Oh, the quarterly reports.
Quarterly reports, yes. And on the quarterly reports, we're gonna go, the first one I'm gonna go to is Fairwinds. And they're, through much discussion and understanding of what happened over the last year, with last year's contract, we cannot do a flex payment to the Fairwinds. So what happened is Fairwinds actually put in for 170,000 and change for their last quarterly report. They were paid the full amount. They were paid $5,876 more than services they rendered. Because we are a municipality, we can only pay for services rendered through that year. So what we cannot make any flex payment unless, and it can be done, and I'm gonna explain that. The way it can be done is at the end of the year, if there's money left and people need to use it towards something else, we can make a request through the procurement office that money be used or held for something else. But we cannot do it without that request put in place. And that request was not put in place. They were paid the full amount, but they were overpaid. And since those services were not rendered, we are going to have to ask for the money to come back to the town of Nantucket. They cannot be used by Fairwinds at this point. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? And part of that is because it's a municipality. And so the other thing that I've actually done is I've asked Brian, he's going to meet with Jericho, myself, and Ann, and go over this. I was lucky enough years ago through the Council for Human Services to actually we brought in a municipal, and John, you were there when we brought in the municipal contract, the man that went over procurement and contracts with us. And I think it would be really good for us to get a refresher on the difference between a municipality's contract and its legal bindingness and to that of a normal grant you might get through somebody else. They are completely different. There are guidelines that we have to follow through municipality and procurement laws. Okay, so that's on my goal to get done this year with us, for everybody to go through that. First, we'll do it, and then we'll have Brian come in and explain it to everybody else, because he is our chief procurement officer. And he actually is the contract holder. So even though it might be through the Human Service Office, because Brian is the procurement officer, he actually holds all the contracts. And he's the one that makes the final decisions on finances after, like when it gets to a point like this, where whether or not there was money left over, we would have to write to Brian as a procurement officer and say, hey, they didn't use this. They're hoping to use it as a flex fund for something else. Is that possible? Otherwise, you don't get a full grant if you don't use it. It's not just free money to you through a municipality.
Those requests have to come in before the end of the fiscal year.
We have to have them in hand with the final paperwork for the fiscal year. So like if it's supposed to be due June 30th, it should be in the hands of the finance director the day before it's due, so that he can look at it and say, oh, well, okay, when this comes through, we have this money available or we don't have this money available.
And they must have rendered the services.
You have to render the services. We cannot pay. So we sort of it's a violation of Massachusetts law, municipal law, and procurement law to pay for services not rendered.
So the one thing we need to clarify on Fairwind's side is if those services were rendered, because the initial email suggested that they had provided all of the contracted therapeutic circumstances, but they had used other funding to cover that particular part. And so they had some internal money, so that we need to, like, there's some ambiguity that I'd like to get some more information back from Fairwinds about what exactly happened in that situation. But as it stands right now, they have been informed they most likely will not be getting to do the flex payment, and that they'll have to go back to the initial award. I've already let them know that that's the likely outcome.
Well, they actually have to, just so everybody knows, the money has to be sent back to the town of Nantucket that wasn't used. And whether or not you use our funds or not, it's only services rendered using our money. When you submit a bill, it's services rendered using town money. So, and municipalities, to understand municipality procurement and contract law is really hard. So I think what's going to be really interesting is for us to go through it, and then we can invite afterwards other people, these private nonprofits to come in and better understand procurement law. It might be good for them. So that's my goal with this, but I wanted to sort of, thank you, Veronica. It opened up, a new lesson again to be reminded about these laws. And so they will have to have a drafted letter requesting them, the funds back into the town. And it'll end up in the general fund, everybody, but so be it. So on that one, is that understood? And then the
we're
other,
waiting on the additional reporting from Elder Services. Was the other quarterly that we were waiting on, right?
They sent something this morning, in the mail that I sent out.
Okay.
I think it was just the
proper
facts and
reporting.
figures, yeah.
Okay.
Still, they requested the full 21,000.
the full 21,000. And so and this is the difference. So the other thing that I talked about with Brian is we cannot pay upfront for services not rendered. So you cannot pay for a program prior to the program being done. We need the quarterly reports for each section. The only where he can make an exception and change and is willing to make a change in the contract would be Elder Services, because what they ask for is 5% of their operating budget. So within the first quarter, they could have used that $20,000, right? And then they can continue to write to us. But that would be an exception where he would change the writing in the contract to reflect that he is doing that with the quarterly reports coming in, to show us that the program is still running. Because it has to be, it's basically a guarantee by a municipality that a program that they're funding is continuing to run if they're going to give money up front. Okay. And so the other ones, there's no other one that we're seeing right now where money up front fits the protocol of the contract that they're asking for us. Okay. Are there any other questions in regards to those? And did I make it more confusing or? No questions?
Not confusing.
Not confusing.
No.
Okay.
Should we mention ahead of time that one of the requestees for this year is for funds to be issued in July is asking for a lump sum as well? Is that relevant now, or should we just wait till we discuss that particular?
We'll discuss it, but that in discussing that, a lump sum payment is not acceptable with that one. So, anyway, we'll discuss it. So going on from there, with hopes that everybody understood that, we are going to go back to Fair Winds. And Fair Winds submitted their, for payment for us. We have to take that 5,876 out of it. Did they resubmit the quarterly report for that one then?
They haven't resubmitted it, no, because.
Okay, so then I think what we have to do is request a resubmission of a quarterly report for a bill reflecting what they need, what from their services they're expecting. So they were expecting the 5,000 to be applied to what that.
That was left over from the previous fiscal year.
Correct, but in their quarterly report, they were in the quarterly report that they gave to us and their request had that 5,000 going towards the services. We cannot have that towards the services. They need to resend us a quarterly report that reflects what out of the funding that is available to them at this point that they're using. Okay, taking whatever that flex that has to come out that doesn't exist. So can we make? Does everybody understand that? Okay. Can somebody make a motion that we ask for that new quarterly report?
I'll make a motion that we ask the new quarterly report.
Seconded.
Bert,
Okay.
Bert, aye.
John,
John Bosch, aye.
Joanna,
Joanna Roach, aye.
okay. Veronica,
Veronica, aye.
Dorothy, aye. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. That was fast and easy. No questions. You're supposed to ask me questions. Let's go to packet discussions. And can I ask, going into this, when is NAMI's going to be available to everybody?
After this meeting.
Right after this meeting.
Okay, we didn't have it for this meeting.
No, because I wanted to double check that we were gonna
Put the-
do it, yeah. So,
Okay. So by guidelines, if they met the date, they're eligible for the funding
yes,
and they met the date. Am I
they're
correct?
the extreme letter of the law in terms of when they applied a malformatted document the day before and said that they were going to send another one again. So there is a degree of ambiguity in it, but I think that they met the requirements sufficient to be eligible for funding.
So they got that, they sent one the 4th. I know they sent one again on the,
They sent a physical copy on November 7th,
Correct.
postmarked. And then on November 4th, there was a improperly formatted digital submission that contained some data, but in the email to me about it said that there would be a second email coming the day after, which did not show up.
Okay, so I got a copy of their emails. And in it, there is an email request that's saying that they were having problems with their scanners and asking us to, if they sent the information and could.
And they went directly to you?
No, it went to your office and it was postmarked on, hold on. It was a final one that came, let me just find it, guys.
I mean, I think it just will go. I don't think we need to deliberate on this too much because I think it's accepting. I just wanted confirmation from the committee before.
So then that adds 150,000 more to this
It
year's
adds
request.
150,000 to this year's request.
Yeah.
Yeah, what it says is it was written to Anne, actually.
Who did it come from?
It came from Carrie Arendt.
I was looking at Jackie, I was looking at Nami, I was
Yeah, it was
looking at.
Carrie Arendt. She does NAMI's grants right now. And it
So
just
it's
does say that it came and that it,
840.
I just noticed the first page of the application, the organization name and program name at the top is not filled in. We're having problems with our scanner, so. And then there's a PDF of it. So they did submit it, full
Okay.
one with that by the date and then sent a written one. So just so everybody knows. Okay, and if we could get that as soon as possible,
Yeah,
that
send it
makes
as
a
soon
big
as-
difference
Yeah,
in what we're looking at.
I didn't know that name at all.
Okay, well, that being said, Joanna, because this is, I'm going to start with you with Habitat. Oh, we don't have Linda.
I don't have Habitat. I have 3 things. One is the interfaith, which is not included in the packet. One is health imperatives and the other is Fairwinds. So today I can talk about health imperatives.
Okay, I have your name down with Habitat for Humanity for some reason, so.
I'm happy to do it. I just didn't read it yet.
Okay, if you could add that to yours, that would be
No problem.
great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And so, I'm gonna skip off to the next one because I think Linda's health imperatives too. So we'll put that off for a little bit. Is that all right, Joanna?
Oh, sure.
Okay. How about Bert and Veronica? Can we talk about small friends?
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Mhm. The lighting in here is terrible.
Maybe it's all on.
Put a light behind it. It's not even on.
Oh, no wonder why the light was terrible.
Yeah, turn it on.
If you'd like, I can start. I don't know what format you usually do these in, but I'm happy to start discussing small friends.
Yes, we're gonna have you do, this is the first year we're doing it this way. So we're gonna have, so welcome. We are
Okay.
gonna be reading the format, okay?
Okay.
It was
All
to
right.
sort of encourage more reading.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, this has been so far a very, very enlightening experience and very rewarding in a way. And just overall, before I start, as a 5-year only resident and still a wash-ashore on the island, it really put a focus on what it really means to live on Nantucket and be in an insular community that we need to provide so much more than a community on the mainland because you can't go next door for services. That all said, Small Friends certainly doesn't fall into that. Their application is asking for $20,000, which is for their summer program. And they go on and explain, of course, in their application, the necessity for childcare, which is one of our community goals. We certainly know that. And we certainly know that during the summer months is when our population, the workers on our island, are usually working extra. And to not have childcare during the summer, and adequate childcare during the summer is it just doesn't make sense to me. So providing $20,000 so they can run their summer program certainly does make a lot of sense. What was interesting in just trying to review this, and it wasn't until I went back and read the quarterly reports and tried to put information together, I guess part of it is for, because they really didn't explain what they were going to use the $20,000 in the application. And so I had to piece together, because when you look at their budget, I think their budget is rather meager. They pay their folks, this is an editorial comment. I think that their salaries are on a low side, but that's an editorial comment. But they didn't really explain what they were going to use the $20,000 for, except that it was a summer program. And I tried to piece together what they were paying their folks and et cetera, and it just didn't match up. So I went back to the quarterly reports that showed 2017 was last year for salaries and 3,000 was for snacks, which that certainly seems reasonable. One issue is I know that they're not up to full census right now. And I don't know if by the summertime they will be up to full census because they explained that they're still dealing with COVID and people getting back in. So I question if if they're depending just on this $20,000, is it going to be adequate to run their program? But I could not get a sense from just looking at their numbers if that would be covered elsewhere. And, I'm not sure if anyone else wants to jump in on this, but that's a summary from 10,000 feet of what they're asking for.
Okay, and I'm gonna have Bert, because Bert was the other one that read in on this.
In the past, we funded their snack program. This is a different request. I don't see any request for snacks, so they must be funding that somewhere else.
That's what it looks like. We funded their snack and summer program last year.
They've been around for 34 years, and they do the children from 3 months to 5 years old. And my kids are both graduates of their program, so now they're in their 30s. So the question I have for them when they come here is exactly what is this funding going toward?
Well, it's for their summer, their after school summer, their summer program. I think it's part of the extended day of the summer camp program is what they usually use it for. It's not really written in here very well.
No.
The other thing I found, Veronica, that I actually found as a comment with this whole application, no offense, is that nothing tells me about current enrollment in the school. So they used to be able to be at max at 69. And because of COVID, they lost teachers. And the teachers are not, the pay frame, you are right, Veronica, the pay frame for teachers at Small Friends is not to par with public schools or with some of the other daycare facilities. So they've had trouble restaffing some of their program. So because they don't have enough staff, they're not up to the full enrollment. What I didn't find on this, and this is a comment to do with most of these, is that there's no place in this that's telling me how many people are actually being serviced by the programs that we're doing. I haven't found it in any of them. And we used to have that. And so that, to me, one of my questions that came out of it was, what is their current enrollment? And where do they stand with their current enrollment to capacity? And how many, what is the cost of the current program per parent? Like we usually ask that when they come in is, how much does it cost for a child to be enrolled in the program? What does this cover? It usually subsidizes the summer after school part of their program. That's what it was subsidizing last year, was that like after the 3 o'clock. They are one of the only organizations that actually funds, or not funds, that is open early. It has later early drop off and pickup times than most of the programs available in a capacity of that on the island. And it also takes infants all the way up. So parents that have children that are infants and under school age have accessibility to this program. And there are a lot of teachers and town employees were using it a lot for a while. So it has been vital to the town employees. But in looking over all of our program, our things, I'm missing that on most of them, is how many people have you actually served right now? And what is the projection? So I saw that in this, and that I would agree. I would like, I feel like on a lot of them, I got a lot of the same information in all these answers, but I didn't get the information I was looking for.
Right. So hopefully, when we revise the application for next year, we can improve how we're asking, and hopefully we'll get the proper information back then, because that's the same thing in all of them, that there's questions. And, I think that means that the application maybe needs to be improved. So
in actuality, what I've seen is, and no offense to Jericho, sorry, I got more information from our one that we had last year than this one. It answered more questions because it was direct to the questions that we needed the answers to. And it's circumvented out of this one. So this was an actual new process. You should see the older one because it actually answered, these questions were answered, which I find to be, really vital. So it'll be good to review both of them at the end of the year and pick and choose what's really good from all of them. Okay. Joanna, do you have any comments or questions?
I do. I think that, again, some of them do have the number of people served. I guess I have a couple of questions about, so last year also, Veronica, it was my first year. So I'm like coming up to speed with now having seen this go through the whole one cycle, and I can actually hopefully ask some better questions than I did last year. I think that, and this is something I'm noticing, like the number of people served are on the reports, but where I think that some of this is getting lost is that when we issue this money, it's considered a grant, right? Correct? And and we do there's a grant acknowledgement letter that they sign.
Correct.
So are they considered restricted grants?
In which way, Joanna?
So in the grant world, when you apply for a grant and you ask for a specific thing, they're considered restricted grants. So there's restricted and unrestricted. Unrestricted means they can spend the money on whatever they want. Restricted means they have to spend it on what they asked for.
It's restricted. It's
You're
a restricted
sure?
grant. I'm positive.
Is the language in the letter when we send it to them, does it say restricted?
It does.
Okay.
It does that it's only for the services that are agreed upon and presented in the grant.
Right. Well, one of the challenges that I'm having going through these is that there's also, I'd like to look at percentages, like percentages of utilization. So if we're in the case of Small Friends, like what percentage of the $20,000 was used for what, right? And what percentage of it makes up the whole, right? So I noticed this more when I went through the Fairwinds and also, what's the other one? Health imperatives. Like I have some specific questions about those in terms of percentages, but the $20,000 is not a lot of money, right? And so what line are they really plugging that into when you look at their financials?
Right.
We don't know.
We
That's
don't
what
know.
we want to know. I want to see where it shows up on their financials.
Do they send the total operating
I
budget?
sent the line item budget. It should be, that's all of the financials is sent right there.
Because they're not asking for
Page
20,000,
14.
you don't have to submit.
So if you go to, like it's in our packet, right? But let's go to their financials, right? It's called CRC packet FY 2023.
I got it.
So if we look at
Page
that
14,
page,
yeah.
all right, if we look at that page where they're talking about income, right?
Yep.
So you can see miscellaneous income, tuition, interest, they have grant income. So one thing I would want to know, so I'm assuming our $20,000 is under grant income. What other, I want to see what other grants they got. That would be one question. I think that's really good information for us. Then on the expense side, where are they showing our $20,000? It's not classroom expenses because that's $254, right? It's not advertising. So
No, it's in payroll.
what is it directly offsetting?
Payroll.
Well,
So,
payroll, here's the problem. Unless they specifically asked us to support payroll, then they're out of the rules in terms of a restricted grant.
I think that they were, in the grant, they asked for it to help pay for the staffing of that, which is payroll in last year's grant. Am I correct? I don't have last year's grant with me.
I don't think last year's grant matters if it's a restricted grant.
No, but in the restricted grant, if it's for payroll, last year it was to pay the payroll for the extended program.
So when you read this, so let's just focus on Small Friends. When you read, describe the proposed program project for which you are applying for funding, seeking assistance with our summer program, staying open. So at no point here does it say we are requesting $24,000 to subsidize payroll. That's what it should say.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that, but you can't comment right now, Tara, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Tara.
Yeah, so I'm very sorry, Tara, but you can't right now. But I noticed that your hand is up and I will, in public, reach out to you, okay? Yes, but this is the first year I've seen it this way, Joanna. Normally, I've seen a more elaborate budget from them with a better budget, like a full readout.
Well, as a person who applied for a bunch of grants myself this year, most of these are not even up to the standards of what anything that we submitted. I mean, we're just like it should be. There was no need for this to even be this long if what they're asking for is $20,000 to support payroll. Right? They can give the justification of the program, but this other piece here, like the fact that they make. The other thing that is, I think, questionable is that they make 11% of their budget from fundraising. That's very low.
It's extremely low. They've had a real tough time with their fundraising. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, I'm for this. I think we should totally support them. I just think that their financials and their request, it should be cleaner and more transparent. We're asking you for $20,000 to support payroll. We're going to use it for these programs. And then in their grant reports quarterly, it should say there's 4 quarters, or whether or not they use it in the summer. We spent $18,000 to serve 50 kids in summer camp, July through August 31st. That's what it should say.
Okay. I agree with you.
But this is all stuff that we could do to educate them on what we want them to do.
Right.
They just got probably they only have teachers over there, so that somebody got stuck with the job of doing this application.
Well, Jackie McGrady does the applications. Yeah. I think that this.
We just need to spend time with whoever does the application to try to educate them a little bit on what the current practice is.
I think we were trying to get a providers meeting together this summer to cover this stuff.
At the beginning.
I'm happy, Jericho, to help with some of this education. I mean, because when I look at the gross payroll, I mean, if it's just under $500,000, they're asking us for 20%, $20,000, not even 5% of their payroll.
Right. Right.
So if I was them, I'd be asking us for more money.
I think all these organizations, if we were them, we'd be asking for more money.
Right.
Right.
Many times we've had to tell them,
right,
you need to ask for more money. We can't give it to you unless you ask.
Right. So I think that's, you know, and in the scheme of what the CRC and this money represents, right? Like the other things I'd want to know is this money directly impacting island children?
Right.
Right. That's the thing I want to know.
And that, I think that was, it's not in this one. That was in our, what is the impact?
It's in this. It's still one of the questions. Like, how do you measure success? What is the impact of this product? I think I actually popped that one in directly. What specific objectives? Like
objectives does this program have?
And like, I mean, not to like, some of this is like, there are definitely some improvements in the application process that can be done and will be done. But I mean, I think most of these organizations have been submitting the same request for many, many, many years. And
well, we had a difference. Joanne, I want to say in the last few years, they've given us a much better breakdown on their on the payroll and on what we get on finances. And I'd like to sort of look over what I have from last year, but I think that I had a better breakdown on this from people.
Sure. I mean, I'm looking at the other budgets and I have basically the same feedback, right?
Do we have more, but did they send us more financials, some of these organizations?
Every financial document, every image that was on there is in the master documents.
Every single one.
Every single page. The only thing that was not included was things like the sample contract and all of that stuff.
Okay, just asking. Okay, so Joanna, I'm gonna just go back to ask what your questions were on this again, just so I can write them down, please.
Right.
So they can be prepared.
So I think that the first question really is is a comment, be specific about what it is you're asking. Right? So if they're asking for $20,000 to support a program, what program is it? And is the full amount to subsidize payroll, or does some of it go to supplies?
Okay,
Then we want to know how many island kids attend their summer program so that we can figure out the impact that we're having with our money.
what is the enrollment?
Island
Well,
kids.
enrollment, and then so we want to look at both those numbers. You're right. So the total enrollment and the number of those kids who are full-time Nantucket residents.
Yep, okay.
Defined as
Year round.
parent is year round is a difficult, parent is a registered voter on that.
Sure. Well,
Well, no, that's
As
not
long
yet.
as
No.
we need it, that's what I'm saying. We need a consistent definition of
Okay, but their
island
year
kid.
round residence is Nantucket.
Define year round residence.
They
Right.
work and live here.
yeah, some of these people are going to go away from, say, January until March 1st. He's right.
So we need an actual, like the second, we need to define island kid. That's what we need to
Okay,
do.
I would say to you, just knowing what goes on there, they don't get any summer kids in that program. They have such a backlog of
We
Nantucket
would
residents.
need to explicitly define that, or
I
else
know,
when
I'm
we
just-
say that,
I'm
like we
making-
can't just gut feeling it on these sorts of things.
I haven't gut feeled anything.
You just
So-
did.
I actually know that from talking with them because I spend a lot of time talking with people that run these programs. So I will find a way of defining that as to how we define that properly, Joanna. I will ask.
Well, the impact. So the other thing, like, look, we could be very granular because obviously we take grants to underwrite. So I do camps for island kids, right? And I get grants that underwrites the cost of the application to island kids. But the level of reporting that I do and the specificity is much greater than this. So say, for example, like, here's the thing, Dorothy, like, what are they charging for the program and how are they applying this? Like, so to apply it to payroll is really a cop out. I'm just going to be really blunt. It's a total cop out. How they should do this is they should say, I have a kid. It costs $400 for them to come. We're covering $200 of that kid's program. That's how you do this.
Okay.
So we want to know how many kids in the program, how much did the program cost, and how much of this, our grant money, it goes to underwrite. Like, so I kind of, in some of these cases, have an issue with blanketly supporting payroll, right? Because what we want to do is make sure the town's money is supporting programs, right? Where there's a result.
But, and sometimes that's defined, and this is where on some of these grants, you'll find it that some of these are defined by payroll because the service wouldn't be rendered without us
Timely.
supporting that on
Yeah.
some of them. So we have to, like, there's a line there.
Just as a very brief potential definition for island kid, children who are enrolled in the summertime who are also enrolled in the wintertime. Would that be acceptable?
Yes. I
Okay,
think
there we
that's
go.
a good- yeah, I think that's a fair way to do it.
Enrolled in island school,
That would be another way to do it. Like if there's somebody,
school or one of the private schools.
yeah, I think that's an extremely easy and objective way to determine it.
I've got a question with regard to island resident. And I understand why it would be important for this, but is that a consideration that we do on all of these grants? Because I don't see that as necessarily like something like, our visitors need some of these services. So it's not necessarily just island residents.
Correct. The programs are, most of the programs are supposed to provide social services to island, not only island year-round residents, but summer residents. They should be able to access all of these programs because a lot of them not only are taxpayers, but if you need a program and you're here, it should be readily available. You know, like specifically, let's talk Safe Place, right? It should be available to anybody at any point in time.
Anyone who does step foot here.
You know, so there's, food delivery. You're here and you can be in the summertime and you can only be here for the summer and not have the ability to feed yourself. So,
But
Right. You're right.
the metric is different then for some of
Right.
those.
so we
Right.
can look at that as different, like how they're looked at differently as the programs. But in general, no, it does not. It's not exclusive to
Okay.
just year-round residents, these programs. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
One other thing I'd like to see it asked of them when they come in is, how short-staffed are they? And what is their capacity compared to their current enrollment?
Okay. And what I'm going to do, guys, the reason I'm asking this is that we will compose these, and this was good, is and get that information to them prior to them coming so that they can be ready to answer these questions for us instead of them coming in and then us waiting for information to come back. Okay? That was part of this, but to try to make that interviewing process a little bit easier, and we're not going and looking for information and waiting for months to get, or weeks to get information back.
And then, because we may be able to, so we get the questions generated here, and then we can, if there's no deliberation, we can send the questions out for approval via email outside the normal.
What we'll do is what we'll do
We have
is
like an official list.
we will ask for each organization, they'll get the questions prior to coming to see us so they can have those answers for us when they come in to meet with us, and documents that will help them better support what they're coming to, these questions that we're asking. That's the importance of us reading these and understanding them, is coming back with, hey, tell me why and what this is, and all these questions are answered. Okay?
So then when we finish deliberation on this particular topic, we'll have a list of questions, and then then that'll be like, these are the questions the group wants answered going before, or if we're going to send out ahead of time.
We're going to send out before their interview with us.
So
and be prepared to answer these questions. when
Please
you
be
come in.
prepared to answer these questions.
so then when we wrap on this particular topic, we'll have a list of questions
Correct.
approved.
For each
And
one
then,
of
okay,
these
I just want to make sure that the questions get viewed by everybody, and we have the set determined before we set it out. I'm just, sorry.
I mean, I think everybody along the way has approved the questions that, I don't think anybody's not approving the questions that we're asking right now, or that Joanna's put forward. Am I correct?
No,
I think that we can just basically, I don't think we have to vote on those questions going out. I think that we can just send the questions out and then get them back to us. I think it's one less step that we don't have to go through that.
Okay.
Voting on that step.
One other question I had, this $100 they pay for banking fees,
Mhm.
I thought, can't they shame the banks into waiving the fees for a social service nonprofit?
I'm not sure. Can they, Joanne? Can you do that? Anybody know whether private nonprofits can get that waived?
No, I've not seen that.
Is that
Good try, Bert.
You can, it depends on, you have to negotiate it with the bank. You can.
Yeah. I was in
Could be
with
like a
another
charitable donation.
another nonprofit, and we brought it up to the bank, and they said, okay, we'll waive your fees from now on. So
That's
I mean, it's not a
awesome.
lot of money, but it's just, something.
Okay, and I had something I was going to ask about. Oh, Joanna, can I ask you this question, just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Because you do fundraising,
Yeah.
what percentage of your normal fundraising does it cost you to run it?
Well, that's a very good question, and it really ranges, right?
Mhm.
So I'm trying to think, like for us, it's pretty low, right? So if this summer, I made $350,000 off of something, right? It
Yeah.
cost me $60,000.
Okay.
So that's really good,
No,
right?
I'm trying to see their percentage, because they've had a lot of problems with how much they put towards fundraising and how much they gain, small friends themselves. So I'm just trying to figure out what is, for a normal nonprofit, what would you consider a good ratio of expenses to profit?
Well, you definitely don't want it. I think you don't want it to be more than 20 or 25%.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So should the the ratio between expenses and then garnered fundraising be an official question going forward for all of them?
Well, we sort of look at, that's one of the things that having a budget, you sort of look at is what do they expend on it and where are they not doing so good on their fundraising and why?
It seems like that's the kind of thing that they're hesitant to share. So if we have a very specific question for it, then I can just plug that in for next year.
Well, but look at this. If you look at Small Friends budget, right? You can see they're projecting $50,000 in fundraising, but they don't show any associated expenses.
They fundraising expenses of $14,694.04.
I missed that then. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fundraising expenses. And Tara, I'll come to you in 2 seconds. Sorry, I will.
Oh, there they are. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to see where
Right around 30%.
where that breaks down. The other thing that's really important that we really have to get on top of is when they do grants, anybody that has a grant through the town of Nantucket has to submit any funding they get from any grant and fundraising throughout the year. It's supposed to come in with quarterly reports as part of it. As part of their contract, they're supposed to send us that information so that the town stays on top of where they're making funds that way. And I think that's one thing we haven't been so great about, and we should be. Okay. Tara?
We don't know.
No, we don't. Tara?
Okay, I have a few things. One of which is I 100% agree with you, Joanna, in terms of the specificity of where the funds are coming from or what they're being used for. I think we have to specifically ask where they're coming from because I agree with you in terms of the payroll. 28% in terms of fundraising expenses is high. It should be closer to 20%. So they're definitely not efficient in that respect. I had a couple of other specific questions, one of which is what happens if they don't get the funds? That's something that we often ask. What are you going to do and what's going to happen to the program if you don't get the funds that you're requesting? Will you find alternative sources of funding? I had a question about the percentage of utilization. My other question is in terms of what are the percentage of the students? They do accept vouchers from the state. And one of my questions is what percentage of the students are actually on vouchers? Because I wanted to know what is the cost per child for the program as well. In addition to that, in terms of some of the measurable outcomes, when you're looking at kids that are 3 months to 5 years, especially with the early education piece of this, there should be some measurable outcome, particularly for the older children. So one question for them would be, I think it's easier to justify funds when you have some quantitative information in terms of the outcomes for these students. And if they are in fact island students, you should be able to track them and see their performance as they get into school, into kindergarten programs and such. I did have a question about how you're defining.
I'm going to go back to one question there. I don't think that's
the educational outcome.
The educational outcome of a child in this program. The program is not really. It is it's a daycare facility, okay, which is different than like a school. And I don't think that aspect of that outcome, I think we can see. I'm not quite sure that that's a question we can ask.
That's why I had a specific question to be more definitive on the program itself, because they do mention early education as part of the environment. And I don't know if that means that they do any type of reading or education while the kids are in the summer program. So I didn't think the definition or the description of the actual summer program was detailed enough because I didn't really understand it. I did have a question about what is the capacity. What is their max capacity? I guess that does also equate to their number of staff.
Max capacity is 69. Their max capacity is 69. We just don't know what the number is that they have there at the present time. They have not been up to capacity since COVID.
In here, it specifically says, I did the numbers, they have 69, but they say that they're not at capacity.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Their capacity is 69,
So I think
but they have not been up to capacity since COVID.
historically, Small Friends is completely enrolled with 7 influence, blah, 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 a total of 49. We are not at full capacity at this point in 22.
Okay, so I wasn't clear on the current numbers. Okay, okay. And then the question about how do you define an island kid? If they're enrolled in other programs throughout the year, are all of these kids going to be enrolled in other programs throughout the year?
I mean, I think there's, for this age category, there's going to be Small Friends is daycare, but they're not going to be in another school program.
They're going to be in this daycare program.
In
I
that
think-
same program?
Same
Yeah.
program. They would be in this same program. They
Just-
are not in, but there can be people that, I mean,
The other thing is if there's a summer worker that comes,
but so to get into the numbers right now, they have people on a waiting list to get into Small Friends. They don't have the staff. So the numbers are not going to drastically be changed by an influence of a summer employee right now. It's going to be the children that are there and the program to keep them going, in that program right now. That's what you're going to see this is utilized for. It's not an influx of students coming in and out of the program.
I mean, we could also just ask them for their population isn't going to, they're at max capacity due to staffing. The 69 figure is a regulatory one assigned to the building and the organization, I believe.
It's the state guidelines from
the
the
DESI.
Massachusetts early education.
Yeah. I think I don't think there's going to be a massive enrollment change in summer. So it would just be, we could just probably get all that information by asking, what's your summer enrollment? What's your winter enrollment? Or what's your enrollment at 4 different points over the course of the year?
My question would be like, what efforts are being made to increase the enrollment or to be able to get to the capacity that they're licensed for? But
my last question would be in terms of the grants is yes, specificity on what are the other grants that they have received, but oftentimes I find it helpful to know how many they've applied for and that they did not receive.
okay, and that's part of the requirement that they're supposed to send to us through the town grant process. So the one that they have right now, the contracts. So we will ask. But you do understand that what you're asking us is public comment. It is not your opinion, nor can it be voted upon, or you understand that, right?
I do.
Okay. I just want to clarify that because when you say we should ask, it really, my opinion is this, but I have to clarify that so that everybody understands where you're coming from as a public member.
I think the only thing as far as measurable that we could ask, because this isn't an early intervention program, it basically is childcare with an educational component, is preparedness for public school or for kindergarten. And there are some measurements that are used with that, but that's about the only measurable outcome that we could maybe ask for.
Like an enroll or not enroll, and then see where they enroll.
Is the child, socially, emotionally, educationally ready for kindergarten? Kindergarten when I went was playing with crayons and, whatever, but kindergarten today, kids are reading. And and there is I'm not sure what test or whatever is used in Massachusetts. I will investigate that, but, as a child prepared for kindergarten.
Right, there is a testing that happens with children prior to entering kindergarten. It's a kindergarten assessment test. That's what it's called.
Yes.
And I think that we could ask what their statistics are in their children being prepared for kindergarten entry. That would be their, not each student, but their statistics in regards to their student body. I think we could ask that question.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions in regards to small friends that we are going to ask of them before sending this out? No. Okay. I will go over those questions with Ann and Jericho, and we'll get them out to our members. Okay.
Thank you.
So this one should be easy. So South Coast Legal Services.
They asked-
That's
they asked-
John and that is John and Bert.
They ask for a fortune every year. Basically, we figured that this money just pays for the transportation, offsets the transportation to come over here to go to court, or to meet with people to discuss their problem.
John? John?
Did we lose John?
He was there.
You may have gone for a bathroom break.
Yeah, I think we had a bio break in.
Yeah.
Oh, did he officially say I'm on a bio break?
I don't think he officially declared it. I think he was trying to
I
get it
love
out
that
without.
man.
I'll add a couple of things from our end. I know you guys have asked them to ask for more money every year. I've made numerous referrals to them. I have never heard a bad word spoken about them.
I'm back.
There we go. Sorry.
Hey, John, we're discussing,
Yes, I know. I had to go out of the site, but I'm here.
oh, we appreciate that.
I think I heard what Bert had to say, and I'm not sure that I'd have much to add. Essentially, it's also my understanding that essentially their request is to pay for mostly transportation costs. And it certainly seems reasonable in terms of what they do. And they are pretty specific about the numbers of people they serve and the specific nature of they break it down between types of cases. And I thought this application, for instance, for me at least, maybe perhaps the clearest explanation I've ever seen them give of what their overall program is for Southeastern Massachusetts. I felt so. I didn't really have anything more to add. So I will go back to you, Dorothy.
So the one thing, which has been consistent with South Coast Legal Services, the fact that they are abundance of information for both the rental for elderly with social services. They work with elderly with social services for benefits, with Social Security, Medicare. They help a lot of them. They've helped with evictions. They've helped with mortgages. They direct people for immigration. And so basically with the amount of hours that they put in to payroll, it's the cheapest attorney available in the state to anybody. Unbelievable what they provide. And it's all through grant process. Their whole program is 99% of it is through grants that they run this. And so we have in the past funded their program, and it has been applied towards transportation to and from the island. And they're available, I think they're available twice a month at different locations. And
Yeah, they're available. They rotate it between it's the Human Services Office, the
Courthouse and a safe place.
a safe place.
right.
Those are the three places that they're available to get their services.
And they accept referrals, and they make onward referrals for people who
Correct.
contact them as well.
Correct. The only
Um,
thing they don't really work in is family law. And with that, they really try to set people up with affordable family attorneys if need be. And also help represent,
No criminal law either.
right,
Yeah.
they don't do criminal law. But they are,
Immigration cases as well, I believe.
they work with immigration and they have a program out of Suffolk County that they work with.
Out of Brockton.
Out of Brockton.
Brockton. Isn't that?
And they,
County, sorry.
and
Sorry,
they
John.
they have, oh, Susie.
No, it's you, John.
I just want to say that we haven't mentioned, but it is important, really, in a sense, they are available at all times by phone. And part of, I think, when they come here is that they get some basic information before they even meet with people, so that they make pretty efficient use of the visitations, partially maybe to meet a new case of referral, but also to deal with things that need to be clarified that they already know about.
Correct. And I've known that they've worked with a lot of terminally ill people that don't have access to stuff and helping write wills and get their end of life plans in place. So,
I believe Saltmarsh has them on speed dial.
right.
Isn't that what we're doing?
So all in all, actually, all in all, out of, this is a great bang for the buck for the community. It also helps keep people out of the courtrooms, and through litigation, they're able to solve some problems outside of the courthouse. And they give us every single penny of where their money goes,
Exactly.
which is amazing.
I note that total travel budget is 10,327. So
We're just
we're
subsidizing.
not even
Yeah.
close to paying for it.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
think
but that's their whole travel budget. That's not just our travel budget.
Yeah, they're. Sorry, please go ahead, Veronica.
now what they've given us on page 19 of a breakdown of their clients this past year is extraordinary, which it's wonderful to see. And it would be nice to have that kind of breakdown with some of the other things. But, they, for the meager amount of money or the small amount of money that they're asking, they've given us a lot of information.
Correct. And does anybody have questions about them that they would have going forward? I think they're extremely self-explanatory of one of the organizations, I feel, that comes into us.
Oh, one final point. We've had Raymond Yost on Council of Human Services to do appearances to explain his work. I think he's been incredibly generous of his time outside of any direct legal services. He's a genuine pleasure to work with. Like we actually talk about how nice it is to work with them.
With who?
South Coast Legal.
Yeah.
Raymond Yost is their principal. Sorry.
Yeah, he's their runner. I love him.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, I love him. I do love everybody. I'm sorry, but the time that people put into this is absolutely amazing, and we sometimes take it for granted. Tara, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Would it be interesting to know what the actual average hours they serve per client, Nantucket client, and also what the average cost per client would be?
I think it's in there. He usually has it in the application. Let me just find it. If I'm correct, it usually runs 3.5 to 4. He's between 3.5, 4 hours with the average. No, who's does that?
I'm not sure. It's coming through
Those Chinese listening in on this.
Hey, do you know what I found out? I won't bring my computer in here because the town has access to everything you do. I'll ask them. I think that might be that I just know that from asking him that question before.
I don't think it's in the application.
I think it's been,
We wanted an average.
yeah, just average hours per person. Got it. Okay, does anybody have any other questions to go with that from the board?
I have one question.
Joanna does.
Joanna, you do?
I just have a quick question. Can we give them $5,000? Can we up their increase?
No, we may not.
We've gone
Well,
through
we
that
can-
before with them. They have to ask for it up front.
Because
Okay.
it's a municipality, the only way it can be done is that they can always ask us for more and we can say no, but we can
Okay.
never give them more money.
They may ask.
They may, then they've written and asked for, right? Which is sad.
Didn't that, I'm pretty sure we've asked that question. Somebody's asked that question every year.
We do. There's some of these organizations that you'll find, Veronica, that in actuality, they don't ask for like Meals on Wheels. We're paying for 5% of a program that takes care of so many. And it's a little like crazy, right? So you wonder why they don't. And they say, well, we don't want to be refused. We actually got them to come up from, we were paying 1.5% for a very long time. So this was a big increase when we hit the 21,000. It was 11, and then they thought they were really asking a lot when they went to 13. So this is like trying to encourage them to understand, ask. All we can say is no and make a decision to fund you where you maybe wanted to be.
And that's okay as long as they're getting the money that they need to operate their programs from other sources. But
Correct.
to cut back services and not ask for enough money is a shame. Not that we have a endless pot of money, but
Yeah, nothing this year for average.
Yeah, there's nothing ever. Veronica and Joanna, you know what? I'm going to have you do the health imperatives.
You are. Okay, well, I have 10 more minutes. I have to leave at
So
2:30.
I'm not going to have you do it then. Okay, because I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
What I would like to do is maybe I can do Artists Association with somebody because I had some questions. John, you were the person on the Artists Association with me.
That's right.
And let me just pull up the Artists Association. Everybody give me a second. Okay, I have mine in front of me.
I've got mine.
Okay, John, you want to start?
Well, I didn't really have much to raise with them. I thought when they've told us the number of people they expect to serve, I am at this point in a position to have just make some personal observations about how the Artists Association, what they have to offer. And I am taking an art class right now with them, and my wife is taking both an art class and a pottery class with them. We know from last year that the majority of the people who take their course, or at least that we were told in our meeting, that most of them do pottery, and I can understand that because the mere physical working of something is probably more therapeutic than for most people than trying to put something on a flat surface. I can say that I had really never been in the Artists Association until I started taking courses there. It is an extraordinarily well-equipped place. And certainly the other thing they do is, which they don't really mention in here, but they provide all the material and all of the things that you need to work with. So that, for instance, in my art classes, they provide the paint, the brushes, surface. And I know with my wife's taking the pottery class, they provide all the clay, the kiln, and the instructor that she has, and I'm probably the same one that would be used for the potters, is extraordinary. So So that's really sort of extemporaneous ex parte description without having any specific relation to the application. So I know, Dorothy, you have some thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've gone through the process with the Art Association since they first came to us, and the art and the healing program and the advantages of that through a variety of different, not only mental health, but substance abuse programs that I've been privy to the information and understand nationwide and actually globally how they're seeing that this kind of work really enhances individuals and helps them. Some of the questions that I came up with here is, I don't know how many students actually were involved in last year's. I can't tell by this application. It doesn't tell me, except for what we're getting in our quarterly reports. But I would like a breakdown to better know how many, they're telling me how many students they're hoping to fund.
71.
I know that, but I don't know how many students they actually funded. And I don't know the breakdown of what the actual, it's costing you. I see how much it's costing them in their budget, but just as the same as Joanna was asking with Small Friends, I want a better breakdown on how this is done. I also see that they said for fiscal year 2022 that there was a grant that they were accessible to through the Massachusetts Funding of the Arts. Well, if it's fiscal year 2022, is it applied to monies that have already been given to them, you know, that they're applying to run this program? Is it 2022, meaning this year, or is it a fiscal year of 2022? You know, I want to better understand there, because that's $35,000. Did they get that money? How close are they getting that money? Because if they're going to get that, they might not necessarily need this funding from us to run this program to what they're where they're at. I feel that as much as I think that these programs are great, and I was a great advocate for these programs, when I see that there's an ability for them to get this through the Creative Arts program, if they can do it, that would be great, so that maybe we can fund newer programs. So I would like to see where we stand on, did they receive this funding? And are they being able to apply it towards what they're asking us for? Because we tend to, in all of our things, sustain, we're supposed to be looking at new grant proposals and how they can, whether programs can be sustainable, and is this sustainable through another grant? I would like to see that. The other only comment I would have on a lot of these, and which I find, I hate having things copied and pasted and just gone in 5 different locations where I feel like, well, I already heard that answer. I sort of want to, I want to hear it more at touch, feel, how are you feeling this is available? Also, a lot of people I've spoken to, and especially the age group that are out of school, that are like 18 to 25, that are trying to negotiate this website and get into these programs, are having problems finding out how they can apply for this scholarship. And I would love to see it become more readily available for that age group that is sort of the group that doesn't have a school system behind them. They don't know what they're doing, and they're a very vulnerable part of our community. So I love the fact that we addressed a few years ago the seniors that we felt were very vulnerable. But I want to see that age group there looked at. And my question with that for them would be, are we making this accessible, and how can this age group find out about this information if they're not, you know, there are, in that age group, it's hard for people to reach out and say, hey, I need help, whether it's Fairwinds or somebody else. But if they know this program is there, if it's easier for them to get into the application process. And I know a lot of kids that have come to me and said, I've tried, you told me it was there, and I can't negotiate this website. I don't know where to apply for this part of it. So I would sort of like to ask them, to me, I would like that to be more specific as to that. I want to know whether this funding that they applied for became available to them, and whether it's a sustainable one in years to come, and exactly how many people benefited from it. And the only other comment would be, I want to hear more from the teachers that did this program, the impact on them with these students. And where they see not, I love the reference points to the articles that support what they're doing, but how inside of their organization are they seeing this is making an impact, and an impact not only on the teachers, but impact on the students in the classes. I would love to have a better idea on that. And that was sort of, Veronica?
Dorothy, in support of what you're saying to outreach to the young adult population, I think that their application is aligning with our goals that we want to outreach to the more of our new residents, the Jamaican community, the Bulgarian community. They want to go to the Spanish masses or whatever. So they're looking to expand their program in this application to that portion of the population, not just our seniors. So I think that it's a great thing that we're asking for, but that may be something they could add into an application for next year, something specifically for the young adult population.
Oh, no, I'm saying in going to look for it on their website, people are having a problem finding it in that age group that have come to me. Okay. How to get the process. And I want to see them find a better way for it to be accessible, to say there is a Healing Through the Arts program. You know, it's a little bit easy. You can apply this way. That age group who are, I agree with them reaching out to try to get, you know, more community based. But I don't want to lose this part of the community. Okay, bye, Joanna. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to see us be able to reach that age group too, and make it, see that their website is more accessible. I've asked them about it prior, and then and I've said, well, they say it's there, and people have gone in and said, we cannot find it anywhere. And so I want to get that. I want to know if we're funding something, I want it to be like right there in your face. You can get it. Do you know what I mean?
It has to be advertised. It has to be accessible, and it's
more
not
accessible. And that's what I want to see. I want to see you're using town funds. Let's see it. But I also want to know that when we're using, and I see your hand, Tara, I will get to you in a minute, the numbers. I need a better idea of the numbers that are there and what we're doing. I am all into any way and shape and form. I believe there's so many ways to reach this group, this demographic that they're hoping to get, and the needs of these people are not only served in an office or over a phone with a therapist. I believe there's millions of ways to do it, which are crucial because everybody can get it through different avenues. Very important to me. But and so I've been an advocate for this program, but I want to see. I'm not enjoying a lot of the touch and paste that I'm seeing on a lot of this. I want a better thing. So that's my personal out of this and my personal concerns. And then my question is, you know, we're looking now with the idea that we have this, what would be a normal number coming into us for grant requests with the NAMI one coming. How, if you can get funding for this, how much funding can you get from a different source for this program? Not that we don't support it, but can you get it? I think that's what I'm really after. Okay.
And I think that question should be asked to every single applicant, because you know, not just them, but every single, if we can't fund you, where are you going to get money for, or how will the program suffer or change?
And that is usually one of our standard questions when they come into interview. Right. Will your program run if you don't get this? And if not, how will you plan on doing it? That is always like the last question we ask when we do the on-site, when they come to see us. Okay. That is a key question. John, I saw your hand up. Tara, I will acknowledge you, but I have to acknowledge board members first.
Of course.
Tara, John.
Well, I would just can comment on the question of the other applications. Having sat on the Nantucket Cultural Council until I finally decided that people were more involved with the culture than I. I do know that I knew something about that application process. This absolutely, that really depends every year on the competitive requests, and that the total amount, I think this year, the total amount may have risen available to the Cultural Council for every applicant is, I think, crept up to something like $6,500. When I started, it was down as low as $3,500. So that is and I don't think those awards are made until around the middle of December.
But this one here clearly says that it has something to do with 2022, the state of Massachusetts funding for the arts.
And this other one, the first one is brand new. That is something that is, and I'm not sure that is even still, because I don't. They adjourned the state legislation before they actually approved the budget. So I think that they probably applied for it, but the question of whether they'll get it is I think will be pitched over to calendar 23 before they'll have any knowledge. I'm guessing on that.
But that would be fiscal year 24, because the state runs on the same fiscal year as the town runs. So that's why I wanted 2022, and that's why I'm trying to find out, where this funding is coming from. I need a better idea on this funding.
So I think we certainly need a better idea.
Tara?
Just a quick question that I would maybe perhaps ask would be, there's a couple of questions, one of which is, why not use volunteers in this capacity? They say that they don't use any volunteers, and I sort of feel like I'm sure that would be in some ways therapeutically effective for folks to volunteer to be a part of the program and to assist with the program. There's plenty of artists on the island that might want to do that. My other question would be about the special events expenses are extremely high. They're at 41% of the income of the special events, and maybe a better understanding of that. And to the point that Veronica had made, and I mentioned earlier on another application, is that question of how many grants have you applied for, how many have you received, how many are pending, and also if you don't get the money, what's gonna happen?
Right, that was a standard question. And it's on here, it's what percentage of your budget, but it doesn't tell us which grants. It's what percentage. It should be. Yeah. We can elaborate that, because that was on it as to question. Yes.
I think that can help, because it can tell you if the types of grants that they're applying for are things that are going to be, consistent, or or who are they not getting grants from? Can give you some insight too.
Okay, thank you.
John has his hand up.
I'm not listening to John anymore. No, I'm kidding. John.
Arthur?
Yeah, I saw you, John.
No, I can answer a little bit to the question of why not the amateurs, because amateurs don't know how to teach very well. They're very good at painting themselves, but they can't convey what you need to know. And interestingly enough, it is, having observed it in practice, a painter can paint pretty well, but conveying that information in a way that is useful to the student, who is the real amateur, is probably a good reason that they're not using amateurs. It was very interesting. The exposure has been quite informative. Now, I will add one other thing. 20 years ago, I took a couple of years of classes at a very well-known art, I don't know what you call art school, with the Silvermine program in Connecticut. It has really good artists. I have been impressed with first of all, what should I say, the progress in techniques in watercolors. I was never exposed to this kinds of things I'm being exposed to in this, it's a 5-session class, special program kind of thing. I mean, the imagination of this particular teacher is just extraordinary. And I don't know from like my wife's experience with the pottery, you really need somebody who knows how to teach the technique as well as being able to sit there and do it. So that's just a comment on the question of amateurs.
Right, and I think when you have programs, we're talking about programs, we don't ask for volunteers to take our pap smears, so we have to be like, in all honesty, we don't ask for volunteers to be working with our children in an after school program. We ask volunteers to maybe be support systems in it. So yes, as a support system, I could see that they should have it, but not necessarily to run some of these programs that you need, teachers and things to run.
Like Meals on Wheels to deliver Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels is volunteers because
food
but
pantry,
they pay somebody to make the meals.
The other question to ask is, the teachers are all members of the Artist Association. There may be some rules about Artist Association people being paid for their time working at the Artist Association. I know that when I took a bunch of classes there a long time ago, they had
So long ago.
it was too long ago.
We know, we can tell.
It was the last century. They had they had specific people that they brought in to do these things, and that they were paid specifically to do these. Like, it was there's, to John's point about it not being a universal skill set to teach, it might be some internal policy of theirs to have people work, like for how they allocate funds. I do think it's a good question to ask, like, is there a role for volunteers either delivering the services or around it? But my guess is it's going to have something to do with, like, it's work. So as members of a semi-professional organization, they probably need to get paid for it in some way or another. I think we'll learn something interesting about it regardless. I put it down as a question. And Tara, thanks for bringing up that, because in looking at, I tried to use this format that everybody got this year. I've got to be honest, I find it difficult, and I actually have it on this one, that same question about the expenses for their fundraising, because I actually worked one of the fundraising events. And not on behalf of the Artists Association, on behalf of the company that was hired to do the event. And I watched a cousin's artwork get sold for, biggest, highest sale ever, $38,000. They sold up one painting. And so where is the overall expense? I thought their ratio was really high. And that is one of the things that we've been looking at with all of these. It's always been a very specific question. And I feel like we have gotten a better breakdown before in a more elaborate budget, showing us the different expenses as to where they go. With that being said, I'm going to ask for a better breakdown on that one, because I would like to see where the costs have gone down on that. And John?
Just one comment again on the Artists Association. I think I know that their big fundraiser is a pretty expensive dinner operation, but I think in their case, that event it raises money on its own, but it is definitely a way they attract significant memberships. And in other words, it's kind of it's kind of a solicitation for memberships as much as it is and so their memberships raise a fair amount of money for them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed bag in their case.
Well, the other question that I sort of had was, I'm not privy to this. I really want to understand. I know when you commission artists, why you commission them, but there's $381,000 spent on art commissions. What is that? I sort of want to better understand what that kind of funding was used for, because that's a lot of money. And I wouldn't understand why you would pay that out in commissions, or did art come in and part of the fundraising was they had to pay that back out as the commission the artist got on the work that was sold? I know that at the fundraiser, it's all donated.
And one
Okay.
other question.
Yeah, Tara did have
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna.
It has the average per student is $340, and if they're looking at the 71 that they want to fund, that totals $24,140. Is that where the $24,000 that they're asking for is for the expenses for the 71 anticipated students?
I believe that is where that they're asking for. What I want to know is like, I want to know how many students were last year and a breakdown on the students. Like we served, one of the questions we've always asked them, and we sort of got a better idea was let's say they served 5 teachers that were having a real difficulty through COVID and a firefighter that went through something and felt that it was really important. And then a mother that was home and going crazy during COVID because she couldn't see anybody or do anything. And, that's the kind of like, I want to know a better impact on it. Like, what are you impacting and who are you impacting in your programs?
Like testimonials?
No, I saw their 2 testimonials, but that's not it. It's more of a, how diverse are we really seeing the impact into the different communities and different aspects of it? Because
The census breakdown.
yeah, I think it's important on it, and that's part of what I want to. I just want a better idea. So, with that being said, and since we've lost Joanna and it's already 2:46.
We have this at 3, I believe.
Hold on. What'd you say?
We have this, it was a 2-hour, right?
Yeah.
We can usually go over by a little bit before we get booted off. I don't know if anything else.
Well, the problem is that here is, I don't really want to go on and talk about more with Joanna not here and Linda not here. I sort of feel we're missing some vital questions, and somebody comes back and asks them, then we've wasted time. And I would rather utilize the time I have and then not.
Whatever happened to the question we brought up last time on addiction solutions?
Oh, they did not apply for more than $25,000, so they did not need to submit a 990.
No. The question was, as I remember, because they dispense drugs or may dispense drugs in their program, we did not fund them.
We need to ask them if our funding goes to the purchasing of drugs, and I have not been able to find there's like a liability argument that I found about the town providing money directly for NACs alone, but that was it.
We cannot fund any distribution of any drugs at all, period. That is what I have been informed. I've asked, we cannot. We have not written a formal request to Dr. Lepre as to where he plans, because his budget just doesn't break down where he's expecting to use the money.
Do we have addiction solutions? We have a group doing addiction solutions. Maybe we shouldn't get too. Is everybody here for that?
What?
Is everybody who's assigned to it? I don't want to open up.
No, everybody is not assigned, but somebody just asked a question, so I'm answering the question in regards to what was just asked of me, which is, we as a municipality cannot support the distribution of any drug. So what we have to make sure is that, and somebody said, oh, well, firefighters do it. They're completely different. They're insured. They're under the town auspice. They're town employees. It's a whole different thing than giving monies to any organization that supplies or administers drugs. So we cannot be part of the administration of drugs. application is too broad. It does not tell us exactly what he's trying to serve, or it doesn't define it as we need it defined. And I'm looking this way and I should be looking this way, but it's because your face is over here on the screen, everybody. So I'm looking sideways only because I'm looking at you on the screen.
Everybody's looking in a different direction.
Yeah.
It's one way.
You can tell, and it's only because where we are. So I apologize if it looks like I'm looking off. I'm looking at you, trying to talk to you. So I personally was working on this one with somebody else. I want to be able to have those questions answered before we go further, because it might have to come right out of the process if that's what they're looking for the money for.
And I'd like to see them find a way to separate the administering of drugs from the rest of their program so that we can fund them.
So we can think of funding them.
Yeah.
So we can think about funding them, but I think what's important is we really, before we even talk about funding them, we have to have a better breakdown of their budget and where their budget and how they're planning to expend it. And it has to be extremely clear that we cannot be a part of any part of administrating drugs. We had to pull back a contract with another organization at one point when they did that without our consent. So it's very important that we just make sure, and no as a municipality, they cannot do it. We cannot be a part of that. Okay. And that's really the most important. Veronica?
I know this may be getting into too much detail, but could we fund a receptionist if that's what the application would come in as, that we could fund the role of a receptionist in a program that is administering drugs that we can't fund?
Yes, we could fund a therapist being in his office. We could fund the administrator. We could not fund the administration of the drug.
Right.
Basically,
right? That's your answer. That's what you were looking for, an answer, right?
If the quarterly report doesn't say drugs, X numbers, town funds applied to it, we can fund any other part of it.
The grant itself has to specifically have in it this specific thing that we're going to do. And we have to make sure it's specifically, because it's very broad.
We need to get more clarifying.
It has to be clarified and drawn down that they're actually asking for one. I want, 10,000 to have a therapist in there, and I would like 15,000 towards my administrator that's in there during the day, but not to cover my expenses or the expense of somebody else that might be administrating the drug. That's what we can't do. We cannot do that. And I think that there's, I would also like to know about, I want to actually get answers from legal also on what insurance they have to cover because they're doing that. Okay. What insurance policy is in place, because that we had to do that with the other one. If they were going to do it, what kind of liability would they have to cover? Because we were funding a program that was doing something like that.
That could potentially exposing the town to liability.
Could potentially put us to liability. Do they have enough liability to cover what the town could be exposed to? So I want to ask legal on that. I had a little conversation with the finance director about that, and we didn't get to elaborate completely, but I would like to have a better answer from legal on that and where we stand on that. With that being said, and our time is 8 minutes.
The next meeting is
8 minutes out. I'm gonna
Monday
say,
at
unless
11.
anybody has any
Monday at
questions.
11 here.
Hold on.
I have one thing I'd like to raise.
Okay.
It has to do with the quarterly reporting. It's not about any of these specific grants. This most recent quarterly reporting, we had maybe what percentage of the reporting came in late?
Oh, gosh. Probably half.
So I would like to see, and we can discuss this more in depth on the next meeting we have. I would like to see that we have a firm policy in place that if we don't get all of the funds in by the appointed date, no money will be dispensed that quarter automatically. Does that
Well, I think that's part of it. I mean, I think that's already out there. So I think what we have to do is
We
just
haven't
enforce
enforced it.
Have to enforce it. The quarterly reports are due upon this date.
And I
No
sent out,
exceptions.
yeah, I sent
So-
out the invoice with the dates highlighted to everybody before they were due.
And
Okay, so I think that a letter could go out just saying that, just for FYI, from this,
I would-
date forward, all contracts have to be in on, all quarterly reports have to be in on the deadline. Anything submitted after the deadline will not be eligible for payment for this quarter.
So I think I'm gonna draft up a letter to that effect and share it at one of the next meetings, so we just have that ready to go and send out. I think it would be much better if it's not coming from me directly, but it's coming from the entire committee. I just think
Okay.
that's a better
And
idea.
can I ask something, now that we're talking about not on the committee, who's drafting the letter to Fairwinds?
I was just gonna send an email to the representative and ask for clarifying information and then inform them that they may have to return that.
No, they have to return the money.
I need to get more clarifying information from them, and then I can send them a request for it. But I need to know with a little more granularity what's going on their end of the thing.
But it's pretty simple. I mean, Jericho,
We
they
can
billed
discuss-
us for
we can
170,000.
discuss this outside of this meeting. I think that in terms of recommendations, it's not going to change anything, but I need to sit down with Brian and have him connect the dots for me before I can do that. Because I don't know enough about how this system works.
Okay,
So-
but I want to just make, I mean, like I understand and we will meet with Brian. I just feel that it should be very clear. They billed us for 170,000. They got paid 176,000. It's a $5,876, I think, overpayment that has to come back by municipal law to the town of Nantucket.
Yes.
It's really that simple.
If services that we paid for were not rendered, then they have to return the money.
But they sent us a bill and we overpaid them. We overpaid them. Their bills, as their quarterly reports
We
came in, we
circle around to this
Okay,
outside of this, because I do not have enough information to make an informed judgment on this particular thing. I have already informed them that they're likely to be returning that money. And I do understand, I need to understand more before I can ask them the proper questions.
okay, but I just have to make this clear. If we get 4 quarterly reports, 4 quarterly bills from somebody that amount to a certain amount of money, and we pay more than that quarterly reports, then we overpaid them and we need to get the money back. They did not put in for 176,000. We overpaid them. And so what we have to do is get the money back from them. We know they haven't used it because they told us they haven't used it.
Yep.
It's
just
really
simple,
municipal
common
law.
sense.
It has to come back to us. It's municipal law.
I'm not saying it's not coming back to us. I'm saying I need to understand more before I write the letter and ask the questions on their end. As in, how did this happen? Why did you think this was acceptable if you were violating municipal law, et cetera, et cetera,
Well, they
et cetera.
didn't. They didn't do it.
This
They
is-
put the 4 payments
This is
into us.
the extra stuff that I need to figure out before I can ask the proper questions for it. I can,
It's in our 4 quarterly reports.
this is fantastic, and we can really circle back to this outside of this
I
context.
wish you wouldn't use that term when I hear it on television from the
Yeah.
Fantastic, or
secretary.
circle
Yeah,
around.
Yeah, it's because what it is that it's
Fine.
there and it's the paperwork, there's a paper trail that shows it. So all I'm asking is that somebody has to write the letter requesting the funding back. Can we find out who writes that letter? Because clearly the quarterly reports show that they asked for a certain amount of money. They got accidentally overpaid. We need to get the funding back. They noticed they got overpaid, did not use that funding. We appreciate that a great deal. The funding does have to come back to the town of Nantucket. It's a municipal grant. That's the way it works. So if we could just, I'm putting that out there. It was a conversation with all of us prior.
We
The
can,
paperwork is available. You can find it by looking at their quarterly reports from the previous year and from how they got paid. There was a mistake made in the payments. We just need to get the money back. And
I will be
and how we
happy
did the
to
letter.
draft that letter and share it with the next
Okay.
next meeting, once I understand what's going on.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second,
Okay,
We're at,
John,
second, Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. John Valash, aye.
Thank you. Veronica?
Veronica, I.
Dorothy, I. Tara, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Sarah.
Welcome.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Monday.
everybody.
Monday at 11.
Monday at 11.
11.